On October 30th, Russia fired a wave of $200 million Kinzhal hypersonic missiles at Kyiv. One of them hit a maternity hospital. 14 civilians were killed. But Ukraine didn't respond with more missiles. They chose something far quieter and far more devastating. Instead of attacking back, they went after the fuel that powers Russia's rockets and tanks. Through intelligence, they found a weak point, the Koltsovo fuel pipeline, and they knew the exact moment when it would be loaded to maximum pressure. Nearly 7 million tons of fuel. One strike, at the perfect moment, could cripple Russia's entire war engine. The mission was called Operation Snake's Head. It didn't involve jets or missiles, just 12 tiny FPV drones costing a total of $4,800. Their goal? To slip past Russia's multi-billion-dollar S-400 air defense system and turn their own fuel reserves into a ticking time bomb. Could $4,800 and one piece of intel really cripple the economic heart of Russia's war machine? 1 a.m., a Kamaz truck parked in the shadows opens its roof. One by one, 12 FPV drones rise slowly into the night sky. They don't fly together. Immediately, they split into two groups, a planned maneuver. 8 drones climb higher, flying bold and obvious. They want to be seen. They want Russia to think this is the attack. The decoy drones start broadcasting fake signals, making themselves look like Iranian-made Shahed drones. That's their only job. Get Russia's attention, and it works. While Russian air defenses lock onto the high-flying decoys, the real strike drones quietly drop low, hugging the ground. Their onboard AI begins feeding fake GPS data into the S-400 radar. On Russian screens, these 4 deadly drones look like nothing more than a flock of birds, flying naturally. Inside the truck, the Ukrainian operator watches both groups on his monitors. He doesn't smile, but he knows the trap is working. He watches the decoys successfully occupy the Russian defenses, creating the crucial window that he needs. From intelligence data, he knows the pipeline is filled to the brim. The entire plan hinges on this moment of disinformation. 2:03 local time, the first Russian counterattack comes from 12 miles away. The Pantsir S-1 air defense system erupts, its twin 30mm cannons tearing the sky, spitting 4,000 rounds a minute in an infernal hailstorm of tracers. One decoy drone vaporizes. The second is ripped apart moments later by a mini-missile. In the Russian bunker, operators watch as 2 enemy targets vanish from their screens. A successful defense. But they are completely blind to the fact that they have just committed a fatal error. Every muzzle flash, every missile launch, is a powerful transmission of the exact GPS coordinates of the Pantsir. They didn't just destroy 2 drones, they shouted their exact location to the Ukrainian operators. And what about the main S-400 system? Its powerful radar sees the 4 low-flying strike drones. The problem is, the genius of this system is its greatest weakness. The AI spoofing makes the drone's flight path look so natural, so bird-like, that the S-400 algorithm classifies them as biological garbage and simply ignores them. In the Kamaz truck, the operator's screen illuminates a new icon, confirmed location of the Pantsir, now targetable. The Russians thought they had just scored a victory. In reality, they volunteered to be the next target. In the S-400 command bunker, the situation spirals out of control. The main display is a nightmare of flashing red icons. The 8 decoy drones create an electronic mess. The system's automated threat prioritization software lags, overwhelmed by the sheer number of false targets. Focus fire on the high-altitude group. Ignore the ground clutter. With that one order, he just sealed their fate. This is simulated swarming in action. Ukraine isn't trying to destroy the S-400. They are executing a denial-of-service attack on the human brain. The S-400 system can track 300 targets, but the operators can only process and engage a handful at a time. By creating a loud, flashy, impossible-to-ignore problem, Ukraine forces the Russians to look up, creating a lethally dangerous blind spot below. In that blind spot, the 4 strike drones are now less than 2 miles from the pipeline. The S-400 radar beam sweeps over them for a fraction of a second. Their signatures appear on the technician's screen, but vanish just as quickly. The system's algorithm, designed to filter out false alarms, has just perfectly executed its job. It identified 4 small, low-flying objects with irregular flight paths and correctly classified them as biological clutter, a flock of birds. This is checkmate. First, the drones use physics. Due to the Earth's curvature, they fly below the S-400's minimum line of sight, literally hiding behind the horizon. Second, they use logic. Using AI spoofing, they aren't just hiding, they are actively lying to the radar, confirming the system's assumption that they are harmless. It's like a thief who doesn't just pick your lock, but convinces your security camera that he's the family dog. In the KAMAZ truck, the operator watches it all unfold. He sees the Russian radar ignoring his drones. He sees the Pantsir still firing uselessly into the sky from its hidden mobile command post. He has a god's eye view of his own masterful deception. A $400 million Russian shotgun has just been outsmarted by a Mosquito. 2:05 local time. The plan was working perfectly, and then it all began to fall apart. The first problem was a direct result of their own success. The wreckage of the decoy drone that the Pantsir ripped apart didn't just vanish. The burning cocktail of lithium-ion battery and melted plastic fell into a dry cornfield below. A localized, intense fire erupted, creating thick black smoke that the autumn wind immediately began to sweep across the low-lying flight path. For the pilot of the next strike drone, his crystal-clear night vision image suddenly turned into a swirling vortex of impenetrable black. He was flying blind. His brilliant, low-altitude approach had just been sabotaged by the ghost of his fallen comrade. This was the moment Russia's layered defense finally delivered a real punch. When the drone instinctively rose a few feet to escape the smoke, it momentarily crested the horizon. For a fraction of a second, it became visible to another specialized radar system, the Podlet K1. This wasn't the big S-400 system. This was a dedicated, low-altitude gap-filler radar, designed specifically to catch threats the main system might overlook. The Podlet K1 didn't hesitate. It screamed out a high-intensity jamming signal across a wide spectrum from 2 to 18 gigahertz. This wasn't a sophisticated attack on GPS. This was a brute-force electronic hammer. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Inside the KAMAZ, 2 of the 4 main video channels from the strike drones flickered and died, replaced by a screen of pure, hissing static. The wireless link was severed. The operator swore, his knuckles white on the sticks. Half of his strike force had just been electronically decapitated, and the situation was about to get worse. The Pantsir, no longer distracted by the main group of decoys, now had a new, real target. Thanks to the Podlet K1, it had tracked the third strike drone, the one that had climbed above the smoke. A missile launched off the rails. This time there was no mistake. The drone disappeared in a silent, distant fireball. On the operator's screen, 3 of the 4 strike drones were now out of the fight. The entire multi-million-dollar operation, the culmination of months of intelligence gathering and planning, now rested on the shoulders of one $400 drone. But this is where the ace in the hole was revealed. The last remaining drone, which was flying on wireless control, suddenly unwound a nearly invisible filament from a micro-spool beneath its chassis. It was a single fiber-optic thread, thinner than a human hair, but capable of transmitting 1.5 gigabits of uncompressed video and control data per second. You can jam radio waves, you can fool GPS, but you cannot jam a beam of light traveling through a glass tube. The Russian electronic hammer was now swinging in a vacuum. The connection was restored, perfectly stable and completely undetectable to the Russians. The drone was still a ghost, but to the operator, it was now a wired extension of his own will. He was no longer a pilot, he was a first-person shooter player in the most expensive video game in history. The drone, now under his direct, unjammable control, dove back into the cornfield, using the tall stalks as cover. The intel choir was clear. The pipeline was under absolute peak pressure, a colossal ticking time bomb waiting for a detonator, and his drone was now that detonator. 02:07 local time. With the secure, unjammable fiber-optic link, the final 100 yards were a masterclass in controlled aggression. The carbon fiber smudge of the drone zipped past the last cornstalks and burst into a clearing. There it was, the plot of 3 massive steel pipes, the heart of Koltsovo, vibrating under the enormous pressure of 1,000 psi. The target was the central pressure valve, a complicated knot of steel and rivets. The operator took one last calming breath. Final approach confirmed, he whispered into the microphone, as much to himself as to the flight log. Good luck. He pushed the sticks forward, sending the drone on its suicide run. The moment he did, his world split in two. On his VR screen, the pipeline was closing in a silent, deadly crescendo. But through the real armored slit of the back window of the Kamaz, a new immediate threat appeared. A pair of headlights cut the darkness, and behind it, another, and then the unmistakable, menacing silhouette of a mobile Pantsir unit. They were barely 800 yards away and closing fast. "End play! Phase 3!" the operator yelled. "Go, go, go!" The Kamaz diesel engine roared to life, and the truck lurched forward onto the muddy dirt road. 60 miles an hour in a 10-ton truck on a road not meant for it was a desperate, high-stakes gamble. As they fishtailed away into the dark, the operator engaged their last defensive weapon, the GPS spoofing device. It was the digital equivalent of sticking a fake "You are here" sticker on the map. To the Russian command network, the Kamaz truck didn't just disappear, it teleported, its icon now quietly beeping from the city of Tula, 120 miles south. Behind them, a cannonade of 30mm fire erupted from the pursuing Pantsir. Tracers tore the night, but they were not aiming at the truck. They were aiming at its last known position, harmlessly stitching through the pine trees of the Bryansk forest. The operator, glancing at the rearview monitor, let out a sharp, adrenaline-laced laugh. "Thanks for the covering fire, boys." While his team performed their mad dash escape, the operator's focus remained locked on the VR image. The drone was now on a perfect, unswerving trajectory. At the pipeline, there was total chaos. The few remaining Russian guards, finally realizing the threat was not in the sky but at ground level, were running in panicked circles. High above, the S-400 system, now completely blind to the real danger, continued launching million-dollar missiles at the ghosts of the decoy swarm. The drone's camera showed a timer in the corner of the screen. 10 seconds. The Kamaz violently screeched to a halt at the rendezvous point. The team piled out, sprinting toward a waiting, unmarked Lada. The last man tossed a thermite grenade into the Kamaz cabin, a final act of operational security designed to reduce their multi-million-dollar command center to a pile of molten slag. Inside the fleeing car, the operator watched the image on a reinforced tablet, his heart pounding against his ribs, 120 beats per minute. He thought of Putin, of the Kremlin, of the self-satisfied statements about Russian strength. "Here's your morning flash brief," he thought. The drone was now a few feet away. The camera image was so clear he could see the individual rivets on the steel valve, the way the frigid air had crystallized on the metal. The last thing he saw was the reflection of his own drone's proximity sensor in the cold, curved steel of the pipe. Then, the screen went black. 0208 local time. From the safety of the speeding getaway car, the operator's last command was one short word: release. The final FPV drone, a 2.2-pound carbon fiber projectile, came in at 140 miles per hour. Its onboard AI guidance system was locked onto the WGS-84 coordinates of the central pressure valve, a target no bigger than a dinner plate. The autumn wind, a mere inconvenience to a larger machine, was utilized by the drone's micro-adjusting wings to add one final, fatal burst of speed. The impact was not a blunt collision. It was a surgical injection of chaos. The 1-pound shaped charge on its nose penetrated the 1-inch anti-drone netting like paper, and then the half-inch steel casing of the pipe itself, exactly 6 inches from the main valve. It didn't just explode, it unleashed hell. This was not merely a blast, it was a physics lesson, the biological assassination of a steel beast. The detonator was set with a precise 0.8-second delay. Why? Because the target wasn't the skin of the pipeline, it was its bloodstream. The pressure, surging at a brutal 1,000 psi, immediately trapped the energy from the charge within the 3 steel pipes. With nowhere to escape, the pressure wave became a trapped demon, bouncing off the inner walls and multiplying its own destructive force. The circulatory system of the pipeline suffered a catastrophic, instantaneous attack. The shock wave shattered the main valve and tore the half-inch steel welds open as if they were made of aluminum foil. The earth shuddered, and a 100-foot-wide crater opened up, swallowing a nearby guard bunker whole. A geyser of atomized jet fuel ignited in a fireball that vaporized underground power and data lines. The beast's nervous system was dead. The human cost was immediate. 12 Russian reserve guards in nearby bunkers were neutralized. Chaos erupted as the FSB imposed a hard lockdown across the Ramensky district. But the sirens and official denials were just feudal theater. The truth was already falling from the sky. Drone debris landed in the nearby city of Zhukovsky, causing an 8-hour power outage. 4 hours later, a U.S. satellite captured 12 crystal-clear frames of the aftermath. The 100-foot crater matched the AI predictive model with chilling accuracy. The mission was confirmed. The collapse wasn't localized. It was a systemic hemorrhage that spread throughout the entire Russian war machine. In the Transneft control center, technicians stared at their screens in horror as 7 million tons of fuel simply vanished from the network. The pressure gauges flatlined to zero. The heart of the beast stopped beating. That digital silence was the first symptom of a paralysis that rapidly reached the front lines. Su-35 fighters felt the thirst first as combat sorties were canceled. Then, armored divisions began to slow, 1,090 suddenly running on borrowed time. The paralysis spread down the supply chain as fuel convoys from the Ryazan refinery sat idle, their drivers waiting for orders that would never come. It created a 72-hour command vacuum, a window of pure opportunity that Ukraine exploited with brutal effectiveness, launching crushing counterattacks on 5 fronts against an enemy that had suddenly become deaf, blind, and running on fumes. The shockwave didn't stop there. It hit the Kremlin, sending waves of paranoia through the corridors of power and causing the national price of gasoline to jump 15% in a single night. The tremor of an impending economic earthquake that every Russian citizen could feel. And now, I want to hear from you. The Koltsovo pipeline was a strategic knockout blow. If you were commanding the Ukrainian drone army, what would be the next high-value target you would hit? I will read all your comments and try to reply as well.